Jump in the back of the pickup truck and join us for a ride back to the good old days.
Are you telling me you built a time machine?
A nostalgic podcast based on entertainment and memories from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. Come with us and revisit the best time ever. So jump on your BMX bike, pop a heavy metal tape into your Walkman, and hang on tight while you go back to the past with us.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Everyone out there, a very happy 2025, and which means we are now starting season 2. So, God willing, we'll get the official launch soon. But anyway, so for season 2, we are going to begin with a favorite, which has been our Decades series, where we pick a year and do our top 10 favorite albums. First, let me just let everyone know I have Dongo here. Hello, Donald.
Happy New Year. Good to be back.
Yes, indeed. And Kevin.
Hello.
Brother Mark.
Happy 2025.
Yes. And I am AJ. So this episode, we are going to do 1976. Thought we'd start bouncing around a little rather than just sticking to the order, so that we can get some range here. But anyway, as always, we start with a news story. And before we go with that, I just want to remind everyone out there to please email us at pta80h@gmail.com. pta80h@gmail.com. All right. So like I said, we typically start with our news story of the year. And Donald, you have the honors.
All right. So there was a lot of weird stuff that year. The 70s, people think that we're living in like the shit times now. It's just that we have cell phones and we see everything. But there was a lot more crazy shit going on back then. And just didn't know about it because if you didn't watch the news, we were outside playing and we didn't care.
Exactly.
Yeah,
people
the
weren't
news
so
was a half
sensitive
hour.
about
Right.
it. Exactly.
Right. But
And you were 5 years old.
So it was just it kind of like, oh, that's interesting. It's one of the largest kidnappings of human beings in our country. And in July of 1976, a school bus of children, there was 26 children and one adult, a bus driver, just driving back from going swimming. It was like a summer camp program. And they got kidnapped by like 3 dudes who just came up with a scheme to kidnap a bunch of kids and put them for ransom. And they took them to Chowchilla. It was in Chowchilla, if I'm saying that right, California. And the kidnappers took them to like a rock quarry, and they buried them in like a box truck.
In the truck?
In a gravel pit. And, there's 26 kids in the bus driver, and they get buried, and then the kidnappers go off somewhere. But the amazing thing is the bus driver riled up the kids like, all right, let's go. And they stacked up a bunch of mattresses, and they were able to like open there was like a hatch in the roof, and they had to dig their way out, and they escaped. Man. And it was amazing,
Wow.
So, yeah.
What a bunch of ISOs. They would have died.
What the hell was going on in that bus?
I mean,
lack of air. It wasn't the bus. It was a box truck.
There wasn't, an air truck shaft, and they had left them with some, like a small amount of food and water and stuff like that. But they didn't bury him deep enough, I guess.
Right.
They were able to escape, which was cool. I mean, the bus driver, his name was Frank Edward Ray.
Good for him.
The kids, looking back, he's a hero basically because one adult and you got 26 kids.
You're in a quarry, so nobody's around. You could have just put a padlock on the truck. I think you know what I mean. Like, why are you gonna bury them?
Yeah,
but you talk about Gen X and how tough Gen X is and whatever else. You think about 26 kids today. They'd be like, oh my god,
they would not be able to muster up
make it. But my bus driver couldn't even make a left-hand turn. Never mind, dig us out
take
of
the phones away from them, they would feel helpless without the phones. Instead, back then it was like, nope, let's do this, guys.
Yeah,
Come on,
exactly.
let's work together, and
which was much helpful.
So there was a lot of funny things about it where like the kidnappers were in their 20s. They were like 22, 24. They couldn't call the police station to give the ransom demands because all the parents and everybody, like news organization, everybody was calling the police station. So they kept getting a busy signal.
They couldn't get through,
So
right?
They fell asleep, and then the guys escaped, whatever, the kids escaped. So it had a good ending, which was great.
Can you imagine, though, the props on the bus driver, though? Like everybody's for the rest of his life, for his career, just give him that nod every time you see him. Like,
right.
Good job, dude.
Yeah,
good job. Fucking A, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So then that is to you, Kevin.
So anyway, moving right along, I went with the big one for 1976 because it was America's birthday. It was 200 years, the bicentennial, which was
Best
such a
parade
big
I've
deal
ever seen in my life.
Which was such a big deal because it was so much easier to say than sesquicentennial.
Right.
Which was a 150-year anniversary.
Well,
and next year in 2026, we have the semi-quincentennial, which is also difficult to say. So that's why bicentennial is my favorite.
That works.
Right.
So absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait for 2076 for our tricentennial.
Right. The bicentennial started out as a celebration in 1966. Congress put together a group that would have a big celebration, and in typical form of a congressional committee, 6.5 years later, they disbanded and renamed it because they couldn't decide on anything, whether to have the celebration in Boston or Philadelphia. And it just, so 6.5 years and everybody's taxpayer money went out the window in a time when, well, my family couldn't afford spaghetti, for fuck's sake. But anyway, and then it turned into more of a celebration across the country in different areas. We had the tall ships that showed up in New York Harbor, Boston Harbor. And the one that affected me was the Freedom Train. I don't know if you guys ever made it to that. I certainly remember.
I remember the tall ships, but I don't remember the Freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Freedom Train was an old engine that they had fitted all the cars with memorabilia. The Liberty Bell was on it. I think one of the originals of the Declaration of Independence. And it went from 75 to 76. It went all over the country. And I actually think it was in the Northeast in April of 75. And I think my grandparents came down from northern Maine. We were in southern New Hampshire. We went over to Portland, Maine, and saw it there. And it was kind of a cool thing because it just went all over the country and had all of this Americana, all of this,
that's cool
history.
Shit.
It was very cool.
That is cool.
But AJ, do you remember that though?
I do not. I was 5, so
I remember you running about.
Really?
But the parades were up till then, and thereafter were always just on Main Street in Littleton.
Oh.
This parade was so massive that it went from, the north part of Littleton or whatever part, Main Street.
Yes.
All the way down to Union Street near Corey's Market. And it was the best parade I've ever seen in my life.
And for Littleton,
Again,
that's massive.
Yeah, well, Littleton did it right. Littleton always did it right. So.
Absolutely. All right, brother. Well, now we are to you.
All right, let me take you back to December 12th, 1976. And there was a man he hails from the planet Jendel. He is Ace Frehley from Kiss.
Yes.
They're in support of Rock and Roll Over, and they're in Lakeland, Florida at the Civic Center. And they come down the stairs, as you know they do, and they were talking about Ace not having very good balance. And
never.
What happened? Right. Well, I mean, I don't know why that is, but he's coming down the stairs and he kind of stumbled and went to grab the railing. And unfortunately, his guitar was not grounded correctly. And then he flew backwards, and the band is going on unbeknownst to them. Well, what the hell's going on? And the fans figured it out, and they're chanting, "We want Ace! We want Ace!" And, he was down for like 5-10 minutes, and he came out. The show must go on. He had some issues with numbness in his fingertips and a massive friggin' headache. But I'm sure they went on to play a great show. And
they finished the show.
Of course, they
a
wrote.
lot of people got electrocuted back in the old days.
Yeah. And I forget the amount of volts that they said it was, but he's lucky he's alive.
10,000 volts, maybe. But yeah. So I mean, they wanted him to write a song talking about the incident.
No, that was Ace's idea, I thought.
Well, no, they wanted him to do it, and Ace wrote a song called "Shock Me," but it was more about getting laid after the show. But that's what Kiss did, and
more notable.
Yeah,
awesome.
So that's my number. That's my news story of 1976.
Nice, and you know how I always have to shoehorn Kiss in. Bicentennial, what a great Kiss poster that was. Remember?
Oh my God,
Peter
that thing was awesome.
Yeah, with the snare
oh
drum.
My God.
What a great
that
poster.
I think is my favorite Kiss poster of all time.
Yep. Incredible. All right. So my news story. I actually wasn't thinking clearly when we did this because I just went to the music, which I forgot that we're not just doing music when we do our stories. But August 5th, and I never knew this, which is why I chose it because I found it rather interesting. August 5th, 1976, Eric Clapton provokes an uproar over comments he makes on stage at a Birmingham concert, voicing his opposition to immigration using multiple racial slurs while exhorting the audience to support Enoch Powell and to keep Britain white. Now, first of all, I never knew he was racist in any way. And secondly, talk about cancel culture now. I mean, he just went on to have an amazing career where now he would never have played again. It's insane.
No, he never would have. Yeah. Only in his music there.
It's so interesting because, and I've read a little bit about it, because here's a guy that his whole life was about playing the blues, which was
right. Yeah, which was not white. Exactly.
Music. And I don't know because obviously I wasn't there. I didn't hear what he said. And I know that they said he used racist terms, but I think his point was, I guess today the term is replacement theory or whatever they call it.
Right.
And there's a whole big argument about immigration. A country can't exist without immigration.
Right.
It's a necessity to survive.
To an extent,
I just find it weird that, and again, we know that Eric had a lot of drug problems and alcohol problems, and sometimes our speech isn't precise
filtered
when that happens.
Right.
But again, I mean, he worked with many Black musicians, and he modeled his whole career after bluesmen. So it's a strange kind of.
It would be very interesting to hear what he really said.
Right. Was it out of context kind of thing?
Exactly.
And have a toxology report and a blood alcohol.
Yeah, right. And one more thing, I wanted to shoehorn this in, Mark. Sorry, I've been trying to do it since the beginning. But because I can't pick this record, I found it very surprising that in 76, I forget the date now, but Kiss released the Originals, which were their first 3 albums in one compilation package. And I just can remember seeing that album cover in the basement. It was so cool with the fire all over it. And, I won't get into naming albums, but, that's after they broke. So it was kind of a great, I'm sure Gene and Bill Aucoin and, had a lot to do with it. But what smart marketing to, once they broke, to get their first 3 out there in bulk like that. But anyway, you know me, I had to. All right. So let's kick this off then. Let's see. Dongo, number 10 to you.
All right. So I'm going to go with Bigger Than Both of Us, Hall & Oates. Rich Girl was a huge cut off that album, and it was a fun song. And they're just, it's an awesome. Crazy Eyes was another good song off of that album. I just think they're a lot of fun. Good soul bluesy guys.
All right, Kev. So 10 to you then.
I love this album. Such
you
a
do?
fantastic album, and that's why it's on my list. Sad Wings of Destiny.
Yes,
Judas
sir.
Priest.
Nice.
What a fantastic album. This is one of those albums that, like, obviously I wasn't listening to Judas Priest in 76. I found Judas Priest somewhere in the early 80s and then went back and just fell in love with this album because there's so many great songs and it's so different. It's so much more spatial than, I mean, nothing
Absolutely, yeah.
against British Steel or whatever. Those albums were phenomenal, but that was they had been rendered down
Right.
to their purest form then. This was much more experimental, much more along the lines of what Zeppelin was doing. And also going back and listening to it, it made me think of kind of the way that Metallica and some of the heavier metal bands later on kind of, I always think of Metallica like there's like 14 songs in one song. You know what I mean? You got
Right,
like
yeah.
a time
Yeah.
change
So
here. You
mixed
got
up.
this,
Right.
you got this piece that goes into
Right.
this piece.
Right.
And Sad Wings of Destiny had a lot of songs. Well, Victim of Changes, the opening song, is
The
10
best
minutes
song
long.
ever. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just what a great album. And to be able to go back and like listen to a band in their embryonic state after you have an idea of who they are
Yeah.
and fall in love with that music.
Well,
all
you've
over
always
again,
stuck
so-
to your guns there, Kev, where you've always talked about how you loved the older Priest better than when that
Absolutely.
stuff came along.
I don't know about better, but I have a special spot for it.
What's the album before
Because-
that you loved? I can never remember it.
Well, so there's this is where it kind of gets confusing, and it's the same thing like you were talking about the Kiss albums where they released the first three once they got popular. There was one called Hero Hero that was a combination of, I believe, Sad Wings of Destiny and Rock-a-Rolla.
Rock-a-Rolla,
I mean,
that's the one I was talking about.
I loved Rock-a-Rolla as
Yeah.
well, but there was that odd kind of some record producer went, hey, you know what? Let's have another product. No, Rock-a-Rolla was actually had a spin-off on Coca-Cola.
Really?
Actually, one of the album covers had a bottle cap. And
Oh,
it said
nice.
Rock-a-Rolla on it.
All right. So then,
Kill.
Brother Mark, that is number 10 to you.
Okay, well, going back to 1976, I was much more interested in fishing 3 times a day. That was the year that's all I did. That's all everyone in Apthorpe did. We went fishing. So I wasn't all that big into music, but looking back, Bob Seger, Night Moves was a huge record.
Yep.
And some of the songs that I do actually like, Rock and Roll Never Forgets, Main Street, Night Moves. Great singer.
Yeah, he was definitely huge.
Good
back in
record. He had a great career, and I don't have a lot to say about it.
Yeah.
Again, my first few selections that are going to be a little vague to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
that's one-
kind of in that boat too, where being so young at the time and being forced into just liking one band that I struggled, but I was able to find some. But the same thing, I'm not going to have too much to say, but I don't want to cut you off, Mark, until you're done.
Oh no, I'm done.
All right.
That was my number 10, and I
So-
struggled with this list as well.
So to me,
at the top end.
I have March 16th, the release of the debut album from the Runaways. All right.
Nice.
Now, this is Lita Ford, Joan Jett, Cherie Curry. Did I say that right? I can never say it. I didn't know if it was Cherry.
Cherie Curry?
Yeah,
Cherry,
Cherie
but yeah.
Curry.
Sounds like a recipe, but
It does. But the thing that I find fascinating about them, I mean, first of all, I get kind of irritated with the whole Joan Jett, Lita Ford thing, because, Joan Jett went through the roof later solo-wise, and there's some animosity
Lita Ford
there.
didn't get laid.
I went to a party last Saturday night. I didn't get laid. I got in a fight.
But anyway, she got in a fight.
It ain't no big thing.
trying to find that.
Yeah.
But but anyway, it was super tough for them. And, Sunset Strip, late 70s, they couldn't break because all ladies, or girls really then. But they tried constantly to get a male singer into them. But I just thought they were very punky rock. You know what I mean? Like not punk, not rock, but a mix of them. And I mean, Cherry Bomb.
Hello, Daddy. Hello, Mom. Cherry Bomb.
I mean, some of these songs were just You Drive Me Wild was good. Thunder was
Great
good.
song.
They did Cherry Bomb? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's them.
Awesome song.
And it was just, they worked their asses off on the Sunset Strip with all, of the other bands trying to do that. And just, it's a great story. I mean, if you ever have time, there's a few documentaries out there on them.
Yeah.
And it's great. But even to this day,
sadly, the manager, I believe, was molesting all of them at some point.
Oh, really?
Which you got to think about. I mean, young girls trying to make, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's just, bad as a groupie, but as a musician trying to make it, what a horrible,
big difference
horrible
there.
situation to go through.
Yeah.
That, because the guy, I mean, he was a real scumbag, and he manipulated
A music
them.
manager who was a scumbag. Never heard that.
Right. Blackmail was another song that I liked there too. But what I was gonna say is the animosity still to this day. I don't know how old Joan Jett and Lita Ford are, but I think they still they tried to
60s.
sit for a meeting not long ago about talking about doing some, not reunion stuff, but something together. And I don't know if Joan Jett's a bitch but that's how it came across.
I actually think that at some point, and I can't remember the story, one of the manager assaulted one of them, and the other ones either didn't believe her or were there when it happened and didn't help or something like that. So I think that's where that separation, and that would explain why that scar is so deep amongst them. So
and Cherie Curry also, I think, in the midst of all of it, was taking, I think it was her taking some provocative photos and having them released without the band knowing. And they were trying to stay away from that whole, exposure of the whole woman thing. Not trying to be sex symbols is my point. And she did.
Right.
And that caused some animosity too. But anyway, I shall throw the towel in and go to you again, Donald.
I had at number 9, the Runaways, and it is because they were at a time when it was hard to be.
Hell yeah.
It's always been hard for the girls to be in any of the heavy, hard rock, heavy metal. Mm-hmm. And those girls were the pioneers of it. And, Lita Ford, Joan Jett.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. They did an awesome job. Kev, the CBGB in New York, were they involved in that scene, the punk scene, or were they separate? Were they in the LA side of it?
I thought they were more LA.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
And Joan Jett was writing a lot of the songs too, which was cool.
Yeah, she was absolutely. A big Susie Quattro.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. Yep. You mean Leather Tuscadero?
Moss Isley.
Yes. Awesome pick, Donald. So yes, number 9 to you, Kev.
Number 9 to me is going to be not anybody's favorite Led Zeppelin album, but it is one of mine. Presence.
Yes.
It got panned a lot. It did not sell great. I mean, it sold great out of the gate, but overall the sales weren't that stellar in comparison to the other albums of that era for them. It was a little mucked up because Robert Plant had been in a car crash and was in a wheelchair, and it was kind of like Page had the full run, although he wrote the songs with Plant when Plant was in California, but they came back and they were rushed because Page wanted to use this state-of-the-art studio in Germany, and they were up against a hard end time because the Stones were coming in to do Black and Blue, and they actually, I think Page reached out to Richards and like finagled 2 more days in the studio out of him. I love the album though. It's stripped down. There's no keyboards. And all I can say about, I think the reason that I love it, everybody was like trying to layer and layer and layer. It was a return to the blues, but it felt like, I don't know, the only way I could ever describe it was like, it felt like blues from outer space or blues on the moon. Right. I mean, it's got a strange kind of presence on the album that just
well played,
seems otherworldly. And that's why I loved it. Just a great, I mean, Nobody's Fault But Mine. Everybody loves that. That opening riff is just rips your teeth out. But the whole album to me, Tea for Nowhere, Royal Orleans.
I really need to revisit them because I understand their importance, and I'm not great pick. I'm not disparaging that at all. I just don't know what it is that I've never been able to super get into Zeppelin, and it's my fault because I have never really dedicated the time to it. Don't get me, I know the importance of them by all means, and I
that's
think
me with the Stones
great
kind
stuff.
of thing.
It's people with the Beatles. It's people, you know, people all have that, but it's just, for me, it's like, damn, maybe I just need to lock myself in a room, you know, and listen to their catalog.
I think the funny thing that happens with bands of that magnitude, Beatles, Stones, Zeppelin, is that you might get exposure to a piece of them, but there's so many different phases. I mean, the Beatles,
right?
Obviously, from Rubber Soul to Revolver, it all changed and it became a whole different thing from I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Right. Like, what are you hearing first? Where are you getting
and you can listen to Stones songs that, I mean, obviously they did radio friendly tunes, but then, I mean, I would always say with the Stones, put on Can't You Hear Me Knocking. If that one doesn't get you, I don't know if you're alive. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
One of the greatest recordings ever in my mind. And the same thing with Zeppelin, obviously. There's stuff that, God forbid, should judge Zeppelin by that horrible wedding song they do, as they call it. It's just, you know, you can't judge them by that. There's so much more. You get into the deeper cuts on Physical Graffiti, and it's like, wow. Or some of the percussion stuff they did on In Through the Outdoor, just unbelievable. But I think it's easy to get lost in just hearing it casually.
Definitely. All right, Mark.
I'm going with Led Zeppelin presence as well.
Might as well continue.
Nice.
You know, continue on. That's why it was quiet on that one. You have Achilles' Last Stand, Nobody's Fault But Mine. Just some great songs. A lot of Jimmy Page tripes upon, was it The Song Remains the Same? Do you ever see that documentary, if you will? It's basically a concert.
I didn't, but it was a news story, I think, from this year, right? I think it was released later in the year. Yep.
They did a concert with it, and not sure what year it was in, but I mean, it was basically
it was a news story.
It was 76, but
I think
it was. You know, it starts off Robert Plant's there playing with his naked kids. I mean, not like it sounds. They're in the river, and blah blah blah. And then you have John Paul Jones. What a weird haircut he had. I mean, John Paul Jones is going back and forth with bass and keyboards, and Robert Plant wasn't singing a ton that concert.
Really?
And you know, he was hitting a few high notes, and of course Bonham is Bonham, incredible. But yeah, basically, I mean, Jimmy is soloing like constantly, just constantly, and that's kind of what this record is kind of like. There was a little concert, not a concert, but I mean, it was a concert, if you will, but it wasn't in front of a live audience. They did a bunch of these songs. It was just Jimmy and Robert Plant, and they had all these session musicians. They had a guy with a maraca, and they did a lot of these types of songs.
Nice.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's not the best Led Zeppelin record, certainly not the most well-known, certainly not the most critical acclaim, but
Yeah, but how many of those albums do we love from other bands, right?
And we weren't allowed to
Others
back
don't,
then.
right?
Exactly. So that's my number 9.
All right. Well, to wrap it up, my number 9 is, now this is an album that I should know a lot more about and have more to say about, because I couldn't leave it off the list, but it came out December 8th, and that is the Eagles' Hotel California. This band is a incredible talent. I mean, what do we have? We have Don Felder, Glenn Fry, Joe Walsh. Did I say Don Henley already?
No.
And Randy Meisner. And just on this album, the 2 big hits, of course, were Life in the Fast Lane and the title track. I mean, Hotel California is just undeniable. I think there's
They don't play it enough, though.
They never played that one. But there's a lot of tension in that band. Kevin, you can probably reiterate on that for me.
Oh,
talk about
tons of tension with that band. But I got to ask you, AJ, had Meisner left by that point and Timothy B. Schmidt come in?
I wouldn't know.
I'm not 100%, but I think Meisner was gone by that time.
He was credited when I was looking at some of the songs. He was definitely credited in writing, but he could have bailed by then. I mean, I love those songs. I just never delved into the band itself and bought their catalog. But which I hear, what is it? Eagles' Greatest Hits or whatever is like one of the best selling compilations of all time. Maybe I should snag that. But anyway, that's my number 9. And we are to 8 to Dongo.
Like I said, my number 9 and number 8 were the Runaways
Bob Seger.
and Bob Seger. So I'm gonna just stick with it. But yeah, I love Bob Seger, and I have him in there, and I want to add the song "Fire Down Below."
Yes.
Which can mean a couple
yes,
things,
yes.
depending on
Great song.
how you read that. Either the redheads or it's got some things to do with
or just
never had.
I don't know what you're talking about. I can't figure out what he's talking about.
We know your wife's a redhead.
Only one thing in common. They got the fire down below.
Oh man. All right. So that's 8 to you, Kev.
All right. Oddly enough, my number 8 is Bob Seger. Night
Oh,
Moves.
good. At least it wasn't the Eagles. I didn't want you to steal.
But I'm going to bring up, everybody's listed and nobody's mentioned my favorite song on that, which is Sunspot Baby.
Sunspot, baby, I'm gonna catch up sometime. Show it a real good time.
Which is just
Yes, that's
such a
another one.
great funk. I just love that tune. That was, and it makes sense that album is everywhere because pretty much most of the album was hits. It was inescapable for that whole decade, really, not just the year of 76. Seeger was just stripped down rock and roll. And I think I've told the story before, but back in the 80s and 90s, Mark, you can probably relate to this. I would buy fake books, to get the tablature and the chords for
Yes.
bands
What
and
are they
songs
called?
that I like.
Fake books?
Yeah.
Fake books. Yeah, that's what we called them. And I never, as much as I love Seeger, I've never been more disappointed because literally everything he writes is AE. That's it.
Really?
So I spent $14.95 on a book that has 72 pages of AE.
Right.
A G
Yeah.
here, there,
There's
and
not
maybe
a
a
lot
D
of-
or something like that.
Most of my
But
songs
Theory
are
going
that
on
was it.
there.
I mean,
It's
keep
keep
I
it
have
simple
some
and keep it in
songs
your
E and
face.
F,
right?
and
Absolutely. I
Right.
mean that
Right.
his music theory was not his thing.
Yeah.
but
He just
Right.
played rock and roll.
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Just
straightforward rock and roll,
Yeah.
which we're going to get
yeah.
into in a
It's
little
like
bit.
that Roadhouse blue,
Yeah.
stuff.
All right.
That old time rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
All right. So number 8 to you, Mark.
Okay, this record it has a one massive hit, and a lot of fans of the band Kansas will know this record, Left Overture. Carry On My Wayward Son is a incredible song. It holds a little special place. I don't know if this is going to make me look like an idiot, but During my last injury, I binged the show Supernatural.
Okay.
Valerie turned me onto it, and it was, I mean, there were so many episodes on that show, but when Dean dies or whatever, they played this song, and my wife was like in tears, blah, blah, blah. You know, they have no miracles. I mean, miracles out of nowhere, stuff like that. You know, they have violins, they have keyboards, it's orchestra like. This record, I don't have a lot of familiarity to. It just that it's basically because of that one big song.
Yeah. Well, I have one on my list where I'm kind of like that. I mean, I do like the rest of the album, but the one song was just so undeniable. I get that.
Massive
what an incredible song that was.
Yes, it was.
Carry on my way. I'm not going to sing.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
America
You're
thanks you.
welcome.
So does England. So does Korea.
All right. So number 8. So this is another one for me that, I mean, I probably like 5 songs on this, 6, but he's just the most sing-alongable artist. And this comes out.
Is that a word?
To, I don't know.
Sing-alongable.
I just made it up.
New word, AJ White.
But
Sing alongable.
November 9th came out the debut album, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I don't know. Every time a Tom Petty song comes on, I have a thing for it where I just want to sing out loud when I'm driving around. And, you know, I mean, this what? American Girl, Breakdown. What'd you say?
I said, like, when you're running down a dream.
Yeah. So American Girl.
That during Super Bowl 42 at halftime. That is very PTSD to me.
Anyway, I will go to you, Donald, for number 7. I lost my
So
spot.
I finally have
No,
one
it's
that
fine.
hasn't been picked. Actually, going first is not the best, and sometimes.
No, I know.
I'm going
I
to go
hear
with
that.
Aerosmith. Rocks.
Yes, sir.
So
Nice.
one of the greatest rock and roll songs ever, Back in the Saddle Again, just is a kick-ass tune.
Mm-hmm.
Just in your face. I love it.
Nice.
Yeah, great.
Is that all you're running with,
Yeah.
Donald?
Yeah, I'm keeping.
He knows
keeping
somebody else.
He
gonna have
knows
this
that
one.
everyone's
He
going to have
knows.
it.
Yeah.
He knows. He does not know how to cross the great me.
Yeah. Anyway, this is something, and I think this might be a record for us for most copies. Because my 7 is Hotel California.
Yeah.
It was just a fantastic album. They had consciously decided to move away from country at that time and more towards rock and roll. Life in the Fast Lane was actually about a conversation that Glenn Fry had with his drug dealer while, I believe, breaking speeds of 100 miles an hour going down the Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah.
Or
drugs.
drugs.
Definitely there was some life in the fast lane for sure, as they used to sing life in the Vaseline. But one of the interesting little tidbits that I picked up while reading on that is they were recording at the same studio that Black Sabbath, who might get mentioned later in this, so I won't mention the album, was recording. The Eagles had to frequently stop recording because in the studio next door, Sabbath was bleeding into their sound studio.
The noise, you mean?
The Sabbath was so loud
Yeah.
that it was infringing on what.
I didn't know if you meant music or drugs bleeding in.
Well, probably a little bit of that
Stories of
too,
that
but no,
too,
no.
yeah.
There was some sound issues of Sabbath being too loud,
Wow.
which I think is kind of hilarious.
Right.
Yeah,
When you
right.
think about the Sabbath fans at that time and the Eagles fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding,
A little
right?
different, yeah.
Little different, maybe. All right.
Yeah, minor difference.
I won't skip you this time, Mark. I will go to
Oh, thank you. I
you
do
for number
appreciate
7.
What a good brother.
Okay, March 26th, Thin Lizzy, Jailbreak.
Yeah.
There's some really good stuff on this. You have the title track, Boys Are Back in Town. My favorite song on this record, Ace Frehley actually covered it, and it is one of it. I think it was Origins 2. and that would be the Emerald.
They come to claim the emerald. Without it, they could not leave.
A great song, great riffs. It's a record I noticed they played that was out in 76, and I liked some of the songs on it, and that's why I picked it. From this point forward, there'll be records that I actually know about. So I apologize, fans. I was 12. I was fishing all day, every friggin' day.
All right. Well, my number 7, You I Soul, is Thin Lizzy Jailbreak. All right. Those two songs you mentioned, Jailbreak and The Boys Are Back in Town. Oh, that is such an amazing tune. And if the boys are going to fight, you better let them. Yeah, what a great line.
There.
But just the one thing, from Dublin, Ireland, Phil Lynott, doing most of the writing there. I mean, there's a friggin' statue in Ireland, okay, of Phil Lynott, because this band is so massive across most of the world, with the exception of America. Here, they're a 2-hit wonder, and it's really sad because they have some friggin' amazing stuff. And
cowboy song.
Yeah, incredible. But thank you, Mark. The first time you stole from me tonight, I believe.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, but I didn't have a lot to say, so you could have gone.
I don't have a ton either. I mean, my top 5, I think I will be able to rant a bit, but I believe it's number 6 to you, Donald.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm hopeful that in the next half, we'll have less repeats.
Fat chance.
But I'm just going to repeat. This is a repeat, but I'm going to use the words of one of the great modern prophets.
Man, come on. I had a rough night, and I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
Get your own fucking cab.
The dude.
The dude.
Hotel California, the Eagles was on my list at number 6.
Yes.
Don't need to talk about it much because we've had it already, but
I think now all 4 of us have yes. I believe.
No.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
All right, brother. All right. Well, so then we shall move to you, Kev.
All right. I was going to say that one of my notes that I missed on Hotel California is 33 edits on that song to put it together.
Interesting.
That goes on forever. And that's as much as I love that
less
song.
than a podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no shit, huh, AJ?
As much as I love that
Funny
song,
now.
you get to the end of it where they're trading off the riffs and it just goes on and on and on. And it's like, I feel like maybe 30 seconds earlier, somebody should have just went, that's good.
Right.
That's good.
It's like Freebird, Leonard Skinner. It's like,
exactly. That
wrap it
riff
up,
just
guys. Come on.
keeps going. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get her
Kiss
done.
Black Diamond on the studio. It's like,
Yep.
end it.
Exactly.
Right. All right, brother. Go ahead,
So
Kev.
that leaves me with high voltage rock and roll.
International version.
International, well, yes.
Yes,
It
this is where I was
released
confused, but go
in
on.
the States at that time. It had not been
The first
And
one was
New
New
Zealand.
Zealand and Australia.
New Zealand and Australia, yeah. And that was one of the funny things, and hopefully I'm not stepping on anybody, but
Yes, you are, but that's all right.
with the story or just the pick?
Just no, the pick.
You don't even know what my story is. So how?
I don't know what your story is. Go on with it.
So it was Angus, and Malcolm's older brother was their producer and he had been in the Easy Beats with Friday on My Mind and whatever else. But at that time, not off that album, but at that time, they had gotten big with Long Way to the Top, If You Want to Rock and Roll.
Fucking great.
And
song. Incredible song.
right. But here's the amazing part is he decided that they needed bagpipes.
Yes, and it worked.
And he knew that Bon Scott had been in a bagpipe band. So he told Bon Scott to play the bagpipes. The unfortunate part is in the bagpiping band, Bon Scott had been a drummer.
Oh no!
And he didn't know fuck all about playing the bagpipes.
And I don't imagine that's the easiest instrument to learn.
Right?
I hope you guys don't know if I'm gonna laugh, but
And they said it was
funny
it was the bane of its existence because, I mean, you think about how a bagpipe works. You have to fill it up with air. It just doesn't work with guitar. I mean, guitar, you make a noise, it comes out.
Right.
You have to blow up the bagpipes and all that. So it was always, when they did it live, it was always off. It just was a terrible thing that happened to Bon Scott was George Young saying, "Hey, you were in a bagpipe band. This song needs bagpipes."
Nice. All right. So that's 6 to you, Mark.
Okay, this is a band called Sweet.
Yeah.
It's called Give Us the Wink. And if you look at it, how I have it written on my board, it almost sounds like Give USA Wink. And it made me wonder if that's when they did their American tour, but whatever. That was written on the board. The Lies in Your Eyes, Fox on the Run, and my favorite song on the record that Brother David put on my on one of my mixed tapes when I drove up to Concord and worked at the state, Sweet F.A. And it's such a beautiful song when you listen to the music, you know, with the keyboards and everything. But when you listen to the lyrics, it's Friday night and I need a fight. If she don't spread, I'm gonna bust her head. You know, they talk about that's how the lyrics go. Sweet is a very underrated band. I think most of them are dead except for one of them. And kind of like Molly Hatchet, they're all dead. Sad.
So many bands now. I know it's terrible.
Yeah. Sweet was like a one-hit wonder 5 times.
Well, look at the video for Sweet F.A. I think you'll enjoy it. So.
Yeah, I'll check it out. All right.
Nice.
So 6 to me. And this is Rainbow Rising. We were talking about earlier one big song. I mean, this album for me has several good songs on it. But Stargazer alone. And Ronnie James Dio's voice is just so undeniable in it. I love it. Richie Blackmore's guitar on the whole album is insane, although he is a raging asshole. I can't stand him. Oh, God, now the song just left me, but you got Starstruck on it. Really good. Run with the Wolves, I really like. Blackmore really got into the trying to get out of like the the dragon / epic type of scenario. And they did, I think, one more album. Then they kind of changed to get poppy and hip hop with like Graham Bonnet, and Stargazer alone was enough for me to pick this album. That song is maybe one of the greatest rock and roll songs ever created.
That's funny because I actually really love the Graham Bonnet and Joe Lynn Turner.
Oh, I do too. I do. I love the Graham Bonnet versions. I mean, of God, what's the big song he did, Kev?
Street of
Since
Dreams?
We've Been Gone.
Oh, Since You've Been Gone. Yeah.
You know, it's just a different band. It's kind of like comparing Van Halen, and that's kind of and Dio didn't want to go in that direction, so they got into some pretty big tiffs. Dio never stayed in that dragon realm.
You know, it's crazy, and I didn't realize it until reading through that. The keyboard player at that time was Tony Carey, who had in the early MTV years, had an interesting little bit of a solo career, and then came up with a kind of a made-up band called Planet P Project. And they had a song called Why Me that was on constant play on MTV in the early years.
There must
And Tony Carey, It's a Fine, Fine Day.
I don't, but I want to look it
Planet
up
P
now.
Project, Why Me? Again, just one of those songs that you hear from that era, and you're like, oh, wow, I forgot that existed, but it was heavy rotation at one point.
Yeah. It's one of those songs that I guarantee if any of us heard, we'll know.
Yeah,
You know
you
what
would
I mean?
probably.
Just not the name of it. Tis all.
Right.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
I believe we are to number 5. We are halfway here. So, Donald, to you.
Cool. So I'm going to take it to the streets with the Doobies, the Doobie Brothers.
Right.
Just professional musicians. I mean, just dudes that knew how to play and can put out some serious good tunes.
I'll grant you that.
Taking it to the streets, the title track. It keeps you running. You know, Michael McDonald is just a consummate professional musician. You know, he's a good guy. So
nice.
What I got.
Sorry, it's just you're so quick and matter of fact.
Well, I know I don't want to take any other time if they're coming up again or.
That's
you're
okay,
right.
Donald. That's the beauty of you
yours.
being number one. That
They
is
are
where
professional
you take
musicians.
advantage.
You put it best.
Right.
No, you put it best, Donnie.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of their shows and very professional.
Number 5 to you, Kev.
All right. Well, if Donald's not gonna, I just got to say it that I have a very strange relationship with Doobie Brothers. I love Michael McDonald. He was like the epicenter of yacht rock.
This is Yacht Rock, the album. 60s smooth rock classics from the 70s and 80s. Set sail with the smoothest grooves on the ocean waves. Yacht Rock. Album out now.
See the one with the beard?
He was with the big beard, and he's because he was everywhere with Kenny Loggins. He was writing.
Yeah.
He was with Steely Dan. He was with Doobie Brothers. I should love the Doobie
Chris
Brothers,
Cross
but I don't.
was another yacht
Christopher
rock
Cross,
guy.
yeah.
Chris Cross is a yacht rock favorite.
There's 2 great documentaries. I can't remember. I think maybe Amazon Prime about yacht rock. And it's just so much. There's so much fun. And I
love it. I
started watching
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys. And again, I think we've talked about this. You got the Picaro brothers. You've got Steve Lukather. They played on something like I think they estimated like 3,000 to 5,000 songs a piece.
Oh my god!
I saw them in a band the other day.
Yeah.
One of the Picaros. And it made me think of that, Kev. I'm like, fuck, I need to tell him. Now I can't remember.
Just amazing. Like, we've talked about the Wrecking Crew. We've talked about all these different hired guns musicians but McDonald was one of those guys that he came out front and had his own career as well.
He played keyboards, didn't he?
As a matter of fact, there's call it the Michael McDonald bop or something like that. There's a piano sound that is attributed to him. I never understood why I don't love Doobie Brothers, but there's a couple songs that I like, but most of it, like China Grove, I don't know, and that might be just
I hate that song,
overexposure.
China Grove.
I don't know why.
They're very overplayed. I mean, they're definitely
one of
That's
David
why
Brown
I'm not
used to
getting
do that
certain
song.
album
top
because
40.
of the overplaying.
Why not? I think
he's a accomplished musician.
Oh, absolutely. Skunk Baxter, the guitarist, was also played with Steely Dan a lot too. You didn't get to play with Steely Dan unless you were in the upper echelon of musicianship. Period. End of story.
Yep.
All right. Well, beginning of story
I'll
again,
stop talking
Kevin.
about Donnie's.
Number 5.
And here, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to go back to back.
Ooh.
With AC/DC.
Nice. That's why I asked if you said the album title earlier.
Right.
Although,
I'm going to get into it.
It wasn't released in the States until 81.
Okay.
A year after Bond was gone.
Yes.
Dirty Deeds. Just wow. I mean, what an incredible incredible album.
Do you know the story behind the song?
The song? No, I don't, Mark. Please do.
He was watching a cartoon.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It was the Beanie.
Yes.
Something Beanie, and that's where the term came from. But I don't know any more than that. If there was more to the story, but I mean, it's one of those albums that just, I mean, come on, Dirty Deeds, Ain't No Fun Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire. It's going to be some rockin', Problem Child, Squealer, Big Balls, Rock in Peace, Ride On. You know how many times as a teenager that I was hungover in a field somewhere and crushed because the girl I was pining for just left the party with another dude at 2 a.m. and Ride On just got me through that period. You know what I mean? It was like, just good. Hey, if Bond can do it, I can do it. Man. Fantastic tune, great album. And the first time that I've ever gone back to back, same artist.
I was wondering about that because when I was asking if you had said High Voltage,
right,
I had Dirty Deeds on my list and I scratched it because I wasn't sure if I could pull it or not. So well done. All right.
Certainly.
So 5 to you then, right, Mark? Am I right?
Yes. Yes. It's
Mark
me,
5.
ACDC, international version of High Voltage. So yeah, there's been a debate, Bon Scott or Brian Johnson over the years. Put me down on the Bon Scott category. The music was more fun back then, a little less dark. I mean, I know it sounds crazy because their songs are just fun. They're just fun. Long Way to the Top. I am telling you, I'm really upset that I didn't put that on my mixtape that we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I just love that song. I love bagpipes. You look at the video, Long Way to the Top. He had all these dancers in the background. It just looked so anti-AC/DC. But wow, just so much fun. They're in cars going down Main Street and everything. You have TNT, like Don't Fuck With Me. You have the title track, Live Wire, just a fun record. And that's all I got to say about that one.
Nice.
I think I agree with you on the Bon Scott thing, even though they exploded after he died with Brian Johnson.
I know, Back in Black.
But you're right. There was so much more of a playful, and I immediately think of Can I Sit Next to You, Girl, which is just a fun song. I mean, he's just being a creeper, and it's absolutely hilarious. But they're dirty limericks set to loud crunching guitars.
Exactly.
Which was
a
awesome.
lot of similar, but they just never wavered. You know, even changing singers, they kind of didn't waver from their sound. Maybe sometimes a little too much, but just that's why it's so ballsy and fun. And I think they could be the band out there that never did better at a singer change without changing like genres almost.
Right.
But yeah.
And there actually, I remember reading a story that Bon Scott never really commented on anybody else, but he saw Brian Johnson perform and actually made a comment about him replacing him if something happened.
He sure did.
Oh, sounds like Eric Carr and Eric Singer. Yeah, I don't want to go down that one again.
Right.
No,
I
way
have
different.
nothing against Brian Johnson at all.
Way different.
No, but I prefer Bon Scott. Was fun. And the Jack. We can't forget the Jack. She gave me it was a bad deal.
Eric Singer, Mark. Eric Singer never said, or Eric Carr never said, should I say, he should replace me to Eric Carr.
No, he said he was going to replace me.
Oh, yeah, big difference. But
yes.
Bon Scott was saying, like, if you ever need to replace me, he's the guy. You know, it's opposite.
Okay, yeah.
Like Eric Carr was horrified that they were going to replace him with Eric Singer, which is another terribly sad story. Yeah.
Incredible.
All right. So 5 to me, and this has already been picked at least once, and it's going to be Aerosmith Rocks. This album, to me, in my opinion, is by far probably their greatest album. I'm way more of a fan of the, 70s Aerosmith by far. I mean, God. First of all, Donnie, you said the opening track, but just every song on it. I mean, now I need to look, of course, but Last Child, Rats in the Cellar is one of the dirtiest songs, and I don't know, the only word I never come up with for it is filthy. But Sick as a Dog's on the album. Lick and a Promise, another amazing one. And then ending with Home Tonight, which is, a semi-power ballad, I guess you could call it.
It's a ballad.
But sure. I think it's an incredible song and underrated. This album just kicking off with that. And I'll never forget, Mark, and you always comment and tell me it's not in the Back in the Saddle tour, but when we saw them with Ted Nugent opening up in the 80s in Springfield, Massachusetts. Yes, it was years and years after Rocks came out, but because they got back together with Perry and toured, they called it the Back in the Saddle tour.
Okay, I got you.
And that I can still see the A dropping with the light truss. The rawness of this record, it's always Toys or Rocks. And this one, to me, I think it's the best album they ever fucking did by far.
It was rocking.
Yep,
Agreed.
absolutely.
Agreed. Well, I'll get to mine.
Yeah.
Yep. So to you then, Donald, for 4, number 4. Yes.
Number 4 to me. Here's where I'm going to go a little rogue on you guys.
I don't know.
I like it. I got to shake it up a little bit.
It's only hard.
Are you going to Libya?
Oh. So, I had on my list at number 4, Kansas, Leftoverture, which is a great freaking album name. I mean, brilliant name.
Yes.
But I'm going to change it up because I'm going to make an amendment because, this is, you say step on toes or whatever.
Audible? You're making an audible?
Calling an audible.
We can't do live albums, and it makes it hard.
You cannot do a live album.
One of the most important live albums ever, and it's Peter Frampton.
You cannot
you can't
do this.
Why? Why can't I do it? It's my pick.
All right, we're going to allow it this week, boys. We shall allow it. But
Frampton Comes Alive. I just had to call this audible because
it was almost my news
this
story.
album is too good not to put in, and we historically have not done live albums, but this one is like a pinnacle live album.
Of
like
course,
any guitar player who's ever heard, do you feel like it, and know what a talk box is? That's like the baseline for how to play a talk box guitar
where it
solo,
came in, No, I said that's where the talk box really got famous. Yeah.
Right. So I had to throw that audible in there. I'm sorry, people. I'm breaking rules.
It's all right. You've done it before.
You're above the law, Donnie. You're above the law, apparently.
I will say this in Donald's defense.
2 strikes, you're out.
That live album is so huge that the other day, listening to songs from that era, I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't, I don't think it was Show Me the Way, but something that was on. When you hear the studio version of the song, it sounds odd to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
the live's the one. That's like Rock and Roll All Night with Prince. That broke them live, and nobody liked the other one.
I had to do it. Yeah. Had to do it.
Above the law.
Had to be done. Tension
Above
breaker.
the law.
Had to be done. Nobody's about the law, Tom.
Fadigan I saw.
Except you. Except you. All right, I'm going to put an asterisk next to that while I'm keeping track of.
Thank you.
Of all our picks, I'm going to go ahead. That's going to have an asterisk there, right there. Okay.
All right, that's number 4 to you, Kev.
Number 4 to me is where you all, I think, probably get mad at me just because
Oh no.
this is that album. This is that album that has to be there. 1976. I can
What
I
is
can
it,
see it on
Kevin?
all your faces. It was the album that ushered it all in. The corporate rock, the anthem, the polished.
He's gonna say it.
Boston's first album.
Oh! No!
It was unavoidable.
It was unavoidable.
It was
I almost did
everywhere.
it.
I avoided it.
It
I
was.
should have done it at 4.
Sorry.
It's
It
on
was-
my phone right now, you prick.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I couldn't believe that it fell to me at that spot because obviously we all have a lot to say about it. I will go kind of wide brush strokes on it. Is that I have a love-hate relationship with it, not only because it was unavoidable, because it was played to death, not just in its year or its decade, but for decades afterwards. But also because it was the pinnacle of production. I mean, it was there was no burrs on that recording. They took they took a buffing wheel and some turtle wax and
But
just
I never-
made everything.
Have you ever heard of them touring?
It was the most
Like I
polished
never
fucking
saw
band
them.
ever.
Did they tour?
They did tour. I saw them.
Yeah.
I saw
Oh,
them
you
on the
did?
third stage. It was what's that?
I said, shut up and go.
I'm sorry. To me, they're the most overrated band ever. but
Oh
that's-
my God.
Well, my point being is that
No
all
way.
of those things, the corporate rock, the arena rock, the highly polished production, but it's still, I finally listened to it driving up north for Thanksgiving maybe, and it's a great album.
It's a greatest
great album.
hits album,
Yeah,
in my opinion, but
like we always talk about like the Appetite for Destruction, Dark Side of the Moon, the albums that are cover to cover awesome, and that is in the conversation.
it's
Oh, absolutely.
undeniable. Undeniable.
How do you call it a greatest hits
that
album,
word.
AJ? I'm confused.
I'm saying in itself, it's a greatest hits album.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no downside.
No throwaway.
It's all.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sure AJ will want to talk about this at some point about the production of it and how it came to be, and all of that, because it's an interesting story for sure. But just it can't be left out of the conversation.
Oh,
It was, and I think, Don, you mentioned Appetite for Destruction. I think Appetite for Destruction knocked it off the throne of best-selling debut.
Interesting.
Album.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
When they did get signed,
After
though,
what, 12 years, 10 years, right?
right? When they
Did you say 10 beers or
10 beers? Yes,
It sounded like you said.
exactly.
I once said Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer
I'm
to my
sure we'll-
granddaughter when I was reading her a story.
Right. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk
Anyway.
about the struggles they went through and all that. But when they did finally get signed, I read they were signed to a 10 record 6-year deal. Well, the 6 years has come and gone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Brad Delp has left us, and so far they've got 3.
All righty. That's 4 to you, brother.
Okay, I just need to say something before I go on with my number 4 pick. You could take 4, 3, 2, 1, mix them in a bag, and I would not be upset on the order they're in. So
Perfect.
these next 4 records are incredible records that I absolutely love. I put their music on all the time in my phone and stuff like that. But I'm going with Kiss Destroyer, released on March 15th. It's undeniable, as we know, AJ, and you have Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, which is actually a cover, believe it or not. Shout It Out Loud, God of Thunder. Just, you have a Bob Ezrin record. They're following up Kiss Alive 1, if you will. And I don't think it sounded like a very enjoyable record to record for the boys. I don't think Ace and Peter liked it that much, and Paul and Gene, I think they were a little uncomfortable as well. But it was a great record, and this is where Kiss really took off. I mean, they followed up Kiss Alive 1 with this great record, and it really was it went up to what, number 6, I think it was.
Yeah.
And great record. That's my number 4.
All right, you just fucked my whole order up, Mark.
Well, you know what?
For
AJ?
once, I
told
thought
you.
my top 3 were going to beat you out. I thought I was going to get to go before you on all of them. But anyway, I might talk about that one later. But
maybe
we're at my number 4, which, thank you, Kevin, that would be Boston's debut album. I mean, like I said, it's just a greatest hits album in itself. The production of it, which Kevin, you already led to, is, they did it in their basement. And there's a few different stories on this. One was that they wouldn't allow them to release it without a professional production of it. So what they wound up doing was hiring a guy to do like 2 songs on the West Coast, to take a few of the guys in and just record some of those songs while he remixed it again in his own basement. But more importantly, what I wanted to talk about, and I researched the hell out of this today. I knew the answer a while back. They had asked in one of the big name producers, and I don't know if it was Mutt Lange, I don't think so, but it was one of those guys that was just phenomenal. He said, I can't. It's perfect. Like, literally said the album was so well done that he couldn't touch it and shouldn't touch it. Well, that's why it's one of the biggest selling albums of all time, because it's fucking phenomenal to me. And I will leave it at that and go to number 3 to you, Donald.
All right. So this is funny because, like, spoiler, Boston is going to be my number 1, but I was
your spoilers are terrible.
I was considering using it earlier, but I knew the Kissaholics are going to come out with their. So
all right, stop it. Now
strategy.
You're spoiling everything.
How do you know Kiss is going to be? Oh, wait, I already did. Yeah, never mind.
But I'm going to stick to my
I met
list.
you.
I'm sticking to my list.
Stick to your guns.
Other than the one
Frampton comes
audible that I
alive.
called in for Frampton.
You
which I
fucking
stand by.
nice soul.
I'll die on that hill. I'm going to go with Billy Joel, Turnstiles.
Nice.
I know you guys don't like Billy Joel. You
I
think
don't
he's a
dislike
dick?
I
Billy
never met
Joel.
him.
I dislike him as a human.
Right. You think he's a dick. But
Oh,
he's
you
a
met
good
him?
songwriter.
No, he's a dick.
The guy can write some songs.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
he wrote some good songs. Say Goodbye to Hollywood. New York State of Mind is just a smooth song. James, I love that album. I think he's a great songwriter. I like it. That's where I'm going.
He is.
Incredible.
He's fantastic.
And my hatred for him, Mark, in case you're curious, was how he treated like players that were hired guns in his band. Like what's the drummer, Kevin? You know his name.
Liberty.
Yeah.
And that should be called out, right?
Yeah,
Like
he
Billy Joel,
fired
hey,
him
if you
sight
get
unseen,
this
didn't even
word,
tell
don't
him.
be a dick.
He said
You can be talented and not be a dick.
yes. He was
Let's put it
struggling
there.
paying his mortgage, Donald.
Yeah.
Struggling paying his mortgage, so he approached Billy Joel and asked for a raise. And Billy Joel did not fire him, didn't tell him, just started their new tour with a new drummer.
That's awful. Yeah.
You
And
know,
you hate hearing that.
that's a
Yeah.
prick
That's
move.
weak too. Because
I just saw something too about a band, like one of their roadies that was with him for like 30 years got sick, and they were like, "Sorry, bud."
Yeah.
Didn't even
right?
as a band and individuals, they didn't even contribute to his GoFundMe. The guy worked for him for 20, 30 years, was dying of cancer, and they couldn't even put like $5 to a GoFundMe to help the guy.
That's a
And if there's
definition
any
of a
truth to that,
douchebag.
like people spread it like wildfire, but he could write good songs. But yeah, if he's an asshole, he shouldn't.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be
Moss
rewarded for that. Yeah.
Isley.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's tough because there's no way that we can know exactly who these people are. I mean, we hear these stories
And what they
whatever else.
actually did, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like you got to take the music for what it is. And, it's a personal choice if you want to buy the album. Not that happens anymore. But
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
you can't tell
Right.
me, even though,
Right.
this guy was this or that. If I love the song, I'm not going to stop listening to the song.
Of course. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't
I
take
don't-
away from the music, for sure.
I don't buy any more Woody Allen movies, but I still reference them and, whatever else. But
Yeah.
All right. So that's to you, Kevin. Number 3.
so number 3 is going to be one of those ones where you guys are like, what the fuck is he talking about?
We like that, though, because then you
comes
don't
Zappa.
steal from
Yeah,
us.
thank
no,
God, because-
no Frank. Spoiler alert. No Frank on this one. I love Frank, but there's no Frank on this one. No, this is a young lady named Joan Armour Trading, and she is one of the greatest singers you've never heard of.
Which you are
she was
correct.
Big in 1976, she had this phenomenal album, great players on it, not anybody that you would know of, wasn't anybody that I knew of. But this is an album that my parents had, and that's how I'm aware of it. Later in life, I met people that were in college in the 70s, and many a dude told me that if you wanted to get laid in college in the 70s, if you didn't put this album on, you weren't getting any.
Good one.
So it's a self.
Does that work now? Does it work now? I'll put it on in a minute.
I am going to look that up.
You've got the name.
Right?
Play it for the missus and see if it works out for you.
Right?
Do I have to play it with a woman nearby?
Who's the singer? What's the song?
Joan Armour Trading, and the album is Joan Armour Trading. This is one of those albums that everything's solid, but the first side of the album is just killer. From Down to Zero, Help Yourself, Water with the Wine, Love and Affection, and then Save Me. It is a almost perfect album side. Again, the music on it is incredible, but her voice is wildly soulful.
I am not in love, but I'm open to persuasion. East or west, where's the best for romancing?
And I just absolutely love it.
Good
and
pick.
You do really listen to it. Listen, if nothing else, listen to the first side of that album, because there's something there that goes beyond
Feeling
whatever
like,
else.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Awesome.
So definitely check that out.
Cool.
Joan Armour Trading. Sorry if I stole that from you, Mark.
When I was reading through
but
this
wanna
year,
play
I
it.
knew
Like,
you'd have some.
What's the
deep
name of the
ones
song
to it.
again? I know John Armour Trading.
Joan, Joan,
I know how to spell Joan.
ARMATRADING.
Mark, do you have Spotify?
Of course I do.
All right, I'm gonna send it to you, buddy.
I thought you used
Okay.
YouTube, brother.
Oh,
All right.
John. Oh, Armour Trading. I got it. You don't have to send it.
Okay, all right.
All right.
So
So that's number 3 to you, Mark.
All right. Well, this is a record that is incredibly impressive. It is a great record. It's called Ted Nugent Free for All. And we have 2 lead singers on here. We have Derek St. Holmes, and we have, I don't know, maybe you people have heard of him.
3 lead fingers. 3 lead singers, Mark.
They got 3 lead
Oh, Ted
fingers on
Nugent.
it?
Ted Nugent,
Yes.
obviously.
Yes.
Ted Nugent and Meatloaf.
Yes. sir.
And you have the title track. It starts off, it's just a friggin' kick-ass song. And Ted Nugent's always, he's always about fun back in those days. You have Dog Eat Dog, which is about your society. It's just a very dark song. And then you have a song called Writing on the Wall, which Meatloaf is singing. Incredible vocal. And this song is basically the follow-up to Stranglehold. In fact, Kevin, I actually like his guitar solo better on this song than Stranglehold, and that is a very
Really?
high bar to hurdle.
Yeah.
No,
That is high
I'm
praise. High
Huh?
praise, sir. That is high
massive
praise.
And if you guys haven't listened to this song, you need to. And this will
Yes.
prove my Uncle Ted's chops and that he can breathe with a guitar as well. Also with Meatloaf on vocals, the song called Together. You need to listen to this song. Anyone out there, please listen to this song and you'll understand Ted Nugent's versatility on guitar and Meatloaf's versatility on vocals and wonder why they just couldn't made it work together. So that's my number 3.
The
Which
loaf.
brings me to number 3. Ted Nugent, Free for All.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I thought I had my order good here where it was not gonna, I was gonna beat Mark out, but I clearly did not.
Like I said, it
but-
could have been 2. So
Incredibly,
Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug.
incredibly underrated guitarist. Like this guy
Absolutely.
is soul, blues. You know, people out there need to get past his politics, past his attitude if they don't like it, because my God, is he underrated. He's just friggin' incredible. Writing on the Wall was my number 1 pick when we did Ted Nugent, which someday maybe that episode will come out. Incredible song. Meatloaf on vocals is amazing. The guitar in it is amazing. You also have him on Street Rats, let's not forget.
yes,
But you talked about Dog Eat Dog. Free for All, the title track, is probably one of the most radio played songs for Ted, other than Cat Scratch Fever and Stranglehold, of course. Unbelievable album, which I thought you were going to have lower than me, you dick. But anyway, that's number 2 to you, Donald.
All right. So number 2 to me, and I can't believe this one slid in, but it's Fly Like an Eagle with Steve Miller Band. Steve Miller Band, he's one of those like top 40 songs that people play over and over again that I don't get sick of, like Go On, Take the Money and Run, Rock Me. He's another talented musician that
Great songwriter or writing.
puts out good tunes that people like. It's hard to. Do I wait in line to buy concert tickets for him? Probably not. But
Right.
do I respect the work that he does? Absolutely.
Yeah. It's one of those do I change the radio station if he comes on? I might.
I do.
But
Abracadabra,
I
I,
do.
would.
But whatever
Sorry,
you
Tony.
like, right? Yeah.
Interesting on that album, particularly, is Mercury is my favorite one on that one, and it's kind of cool because Steve Miller was actually a very accomplished blues guitarist, and then moved into being more commercial stuff with Fly Like an Eagle and stuff like that. But definitely started out as a blues guitarist and much more my speed.
And his
than-
father was a big band, swing stuff. Yeah.
All right. Number 2 to you, Kev? Am I
Number
correct here?
dose to me, I am going to go with the Royal Scam, Steely Dan.
Nice.
Wow.
What a great album. One of the cool things about this album that ties back to the Eagles Hotel California. On this album, there's a song where he says something about turning the Eagles down. Apparently, Walter Becker had a girlfriend at the time who was a big Eagles fan. Different kind of music altogether than what they did, but she used to, crank it up all the time. And so having heard that, Henley and Fry in the song Hotel California put in, they stab it with their steely knives.
Yeah.
Oh
But
God,
they just can't kill
that's
the
where that came
beast.
from.
Oh,
And that was a retort to
the Eagles?
Steely Dan talking about the Eagles.
Nope.
Can I sound ignorant, Kevin, for a minute? What kind of music did Steely Dan play? Because I never really understood what they did.
Well, here's the funny thing: is talking about that yacht rock is the people that made the term yacht rock famous call Steely Dan the epicenter of it. When they called Donald Fagen, he told him to fuck off. It was jazz influenced rock. There was pop. I don't know. It's funky motherfucking shit is what it is. At the root of it, that's why I like it. Again, that's one of those bands like we were talking about with Zeppelin and Stones and Beatles that, yeah, if you know Ricky Don't Lose That Number, then you don't know who the band is.
Right.
There's some like Chain Lightning is just a great blues song. They had the best musicians that were available, and they brought them in. So Steely Dan was never really a band. Steely Dan was Donald Fagen and Walter Becker
with hired guns,
wrote
kind of like Nine Inch
keyboards,
Nails, except with
talent.
Well, no, I'm just saying that. Oh my God, now I can't think of the guy's name.
That's funny.
From Nine Inch Nails. What's the lead guy's name again?
Trent Reznor.
Yeah, Trent Reznor. Yeah, he had rotating musicians coming in and playing.
One of the best songs Johnny Cash ever played.
Yes.
Hurt.
Yeah.
Hurt. Yes.
I don't know if it's
Hurt.
the best Johnny Cash ever did, but
the original
great.
sucks though.
Great
exactly.
cover.
I mean, you can think that, but
I do.
Yeah, Steely Dan has they are considered the gold standard. So anyway, a great album, Kid Charlemagne, about Stanley Owlsley, who was the crafter of LSD in that 70s era, 60s, 70s era. Just so many great songs on that. It was wedged between, I think it was Can't Buy a Thrill and Asia, which were both huge albums. Steely Dan is definitely worth listening to because there's almost no better collection of musicians put together and recording.
I need to check some of it out because being honest, I don't know a whole lot either.
Yeah, because the four of us haven't been in my music room. Then we'll have the best collection of musicians ever.
Well, you just didn't know who Steely Dan was, so that was my point.
No, I think
I'm just saying that if all four of us were in my music room, we would create the best music that has ever been created.
Yes, as would I. I might be able to play that mini guitar behind you and play one note on it.
It's called a mandolin.
So
what was it Scotty used to say? I play the electric triangle.
Yeah. He said that was one of the funniest nights ever when he said, big stack of Marshalls behind me. Before I move forward to your number 2 mark, I am going to kill you if you mess this up for me. Because I thought I had one record that I was going to be able to pick before Mark going after
the way the game is played, AJ.
And I have a feeling he's going to swap shit up on me and screw
I'm not swapping
me.
anything.
Well, you're not swapping, but I'm worried. Number 2 to you, brother.
All right, AJ. I have Aerosmith Rocks.
All right.
And this was tough for me because I did pick this in a mishmash as my favorite rock and roll record of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Best record of all time. And you have, like Donnie said, and Back in the Saddle. My 2 favorite songs on this record, which are ballsy, riffy, just friggin' almost, I mean, I don't want to say violent, but Nobody's Fault in combination. You have Last Child, Sick as a Dog. It's just filthy, dirty, riffy, just friggin' honest. Get down, incredible stuff. I mean, looking at all the records, I mean, because over the years, I did not always know, like I do with Kiss, what songs were on what record. But this is an incredible record. It's just filthy. Something, and I do listen to it all the time on my phone. I love this shit.
The rawness of it was just incredible.
Rawness. I have freaking rashes all over my body.
Antithesis
when
of
I
Boston.
What you? Yes, exactly. This is unpolished, absolutely unpolished, and I don't like polished music.
All right, so thank goodness I get to pick one before you because I actually rank these two albums a little different. My number 2 is Kiss Rock and Roll Over. And this is what I was worried about. I thought Mark was going to get to it before me.
Oh no, because that was going to be reversed at first, and I.
But anyway, these albums that came out this year were the height of Kiss superhero-ness, incredible. Starts out with I Want You. You have Dr. Love on it. You have Love 'Em, Leave 'Em. You have Mr. Speed, which to me is one of the greatest Paul songs and most underrated. In the Kiss community, it's massive. To me, it's awesome. Hard Luck Woman's on this album. Making Love's on this album. I'm not going to go too crazy on it right now, but when you go through their songs, this is when Eddie Kramer came back after Alive, got them into the rawness. So they actually played, I think they were in like Canada and played in like one big room together where they played, don't quote me on that, Kiss fans, because God, I don't want to be crucified. They played live. It was raw, kind of talking about Aerosmith. And I think it's really difficult to do this list. So, all right, that's number 1 to you, Donald.
Cool. And I left the ones that you're obviously going to use for your number 1, number 2, because I deferred those to Mark and AJ. Amazing. Not going to discount how awesome those are. But I went with Boston. It was my number 1, Boston, yes. Boston. Kevin said it perfectly. That album is so polished. Like, it's perfect. That album is perfect. It's a studio production. And I know, like Mark, you were saying, it's a little too polished, but in time, that thing is it's perfect. Like, to me, the song Long Time is one of my favorite songs. The solo on that, the way it kicks in is... I love that. The vocals are amazing. I would have loved to seen them live to see how they could reproduce it. Like, could it be reproduced live versus studio? And I never got that opportunity. I never heard a live album from them.
Right.
Unfortunately, they had a short, they had 3 albums, but it seems like they had a very short career. They didn't do like a lot of touring like a lot of bands do. So I
don't think I ever remember hearing about them playing around here. And we live near Boston.
Live. I never see a video of them live. Like, I don't know how they could reproduce that sound live. Like,
there's some I've run into on YouTube lately of, I believe, that first tour, if not the second, but I think it was the first tour. And they were, Schultz was going from keyboards to guitar, and it sounded right. I did see them on the third stage, which would have been the third album, which would 87, 88, somewhere in that era. I saw them at the Worcester Centrum. Of course, I had the nosebleed seats, and if I squinted, I could almost see them on the stage, but the sound was incredible.
Yeah. And that's cool. That's good to hear, because another band I equate to that is like Def Leppard and Hysteria. Like, there was a perfect recording, and they did it pretty well live.
They do it.
I don't know.
Excellent live. They thrive on their backing their gang vocals. They thrive on.
They did it pretty good, and that, to me, that's important. Can they pull it off live?
Exactly. Or is it a laptop?
But that album,
now?
Boston, is just a recording masterpiece to me.
It damn well is
beautiful sounding, and. Schultz, I don't know if he was a dick or whatever, but I used a Rockman. It was an awesome a piece of equipment in the 80s.
Yeah.
It was a Walkman for guitar, and it sounded amazing, and it was way ahead of its time as far as technology for guitarists and stuff.
Was that to plug
practicing.
into and hear
Yeah,
like
it was like a
headphones?
Walkman amp.
One of the things with Schultz is much like Eddie Van Halen, earlier than Van Halen, is a lot of his sound came from the engineering that he understood. He created that sound for that guitar.
Oh, hell yeah.
You did,
yeah.
And it wasn't sitting there and playing with the reverb and the gain and whatever on your amp. He literally electronically made his guitar sound differently. So when they did play live, he did have that super polished guitar sound.
Yeah.
Which now I think you can just push a button on whatever.
Yeah, and auto tune and all that stuff. The vocals, I mean, their music was amazing, but the vocals were right on par too. Like the high notes that he was hitting were just,
incredible.
And that's the thing that can't be faked or whatever else.
Yeah.
Brad Delp was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
As a singer, I mean, that was real. What he was
absolutely.
doing. I mean, it was multi-tracked and whatever else, but that was still him, and he was unbelievable.
And
for sure.
All right, so that's number one to you, Kev.
All right, once again, I'm gonna pull one out that I just can't believe you guys didn't even mention. I would have thought you would have picked this early on. It's an album called Sandman by Harry Nilsson.
Oh, dear Lord.
You're shocked. Shocked, I tell you, shocked.
This is one of my all-time favorite albums, and it's one of those albums that went out of print. It went out. They just stopped making it because nobody had any interest in it, except me. I actually bought it on eBay in the early days of eBay from a guy in Canada. I got a pristine vinyl and transferred it to CD, and actually had an artist I knew take pictures of the album cover, and I made up like 20 copies of this on CD, and still nobody was interested. No, that's not true. Harry Nilsson, if you don't know, was the Beatles' favorite American singer. One is The Loneliest Number, Lime in the Coconut.
Oh, no shit.
A tremendous, Everybody's Talking from Midnight Cowboy. The guy was an amazing songwriter. He had, I want to say, was an 8-octave range in his vocals or something ridiculous like that.
Wow.
The guy was unbelievably talented. And this was one of those albums where it was like he was left alone with the keys to the kingdom, and he wrote these great fun songs. He had some of the best musicians playing with him. Van Dyke Parks on keyboards, Jim Keltner on drums, Klaus Vormann. I mean, these guys were absolutely top of their game, and he just had fun with it. There's a song called Jesus Christ You're Tall.
I said, Jesus, I said, Jesus, I said, Jesus Christ, you're tall. I've been nobody, I've been nobody, I've been nobody, I wanted to dance with you at all.
And it's about, how nobody wants to date the girl because she's too tall.
It's intimidating.
Ivy-covered walls. What's that?
It's intimidating.
Well, absolutely.
But it's also pretty intriguing too, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I want that challenge.
Can I climb that?
When you're my height, every girl's taller. I'm not that short. Sorry.
Yep, there's I'll Take a Tango. Again, this is one of my, I believe you can get it on Spotify now. Worth listening to. There's one called How to Write a Song. He says, how to write a song. He says, if you write it on guitar, place your guitar upon your knee. If you write it on piano, don't do that. He had a lot of wit in what he wrote, and there's this one. It's 6 minutes and 40 seconds long. It's called the Flying Saucer Song, and it's just two guys in a bar talking, and he does the voices, and he just it's crazy. It's absolutely wild. By no means his most popular release, but it was one of those albums that my father bought, and I listened to it over and over again, and there was just something, there's greatness in it. Awesome. And it just doesn't fit into the pigeonhole of what people expected from him or people like him. And that's, I think, what
Or
I like
you.
about it. Or me?
Yeah, no, in a good way. Like I never would have expected you to pick that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was that album really meant that much to me. It is without
That's
question
awesome.
my number one.
Nice. So number one to you, brother, which is the only steal I had.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm picking. Well, I couldn't come up with something to say funny, but Kiss Rock and Roll Over, the most classic Kiss record in their catalog, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, me and my buddy Ace Frehley only have one problem. He did not write any of the material on this, but son of a bitch, did he just play classic Ace Frehley sounds up and down this record. You have I Want You, Paul and Ace trade solos, Love 'Em, Leave 'Em, which is about, basically marrying somebody for 100 years. Baby Driver, Peter Chris's addition to this record. Ace plays a great solo on it. Hard Luck Woman. Let me tell you something about Peter Criss. That vocal he did on Hard Luck Woman is so classic. And let me tell you something about Paul Stanley. He said, I mean, every time I go on my friggin' computer, Paul Stanley says, this was a nightmare. Paul Stanley says that was a nightmare. And like recording with Peter Criss on Rock and Roll Over was a nightmare. It's like, fuck you, Paul.
Yeah.
That was the most classic. This is the ultimate Kiss sound at their absolute peak.
Pinnacle.
And I Aerosmith Rocks, I picked number one in another compilation, but I had to pick this one.
Yeah.
I had to pick it.
Incredible record.
I listen to it all the time. I pull it up all the time. And I listened to it before the reunion tour. Just a great record, just classic Kiss. Perfect.
Absolutely. And Paul has always been that type who just shits on everything from the past. Like,
even when
if
it's
he
perfect?
doesn't love it or it has something to do with Ace or Peter, he can't like it. He's so hypersensitive. It's unbelievable. Good pick.
They must know.
Right. All right. So I'll finish it up then. And mine is quite obvious, I'm sure, for everyone out there. And that is Kiss Destroyer. And yes, this was a little bit of a tune out for a lot of the Kiss fans who came aboard, from the first three albums and Alive. Bob Ezrin came in, buckled them down, and contrary to what you said, Mark, believe it or not, Peter and Ace actually appreciated what he did after the fact, although they hated
I know that.
the discipline that he gave them. Like, I think a few songs they had Peter playing in an elevator to get the right sound.
Yes.
He was very intricate and eccentric. And the only reason I took it over Rock and Roll Over and its raw sound is I went through my head through the songs and I'm like, all right, Great Expectations. You know what? I like it better than See You in Your Dreams. I hate that friggin' song. And I just,
it's
it was a real tough way out. I mean, like you said in your picks, it was like a 1 and a 1A. Destroyer is the album that, I mean, think about it. What do you got? You got Detroit, Do You Love Me, Shout It Out Loud, Beth, God of Thunder. And these are just songs that they pretty much continued playing live throughout the entire career of the band. I mean, what more can I say about Kiss Destroyer? And then Detroit Rock City and King of the Nighttime World. I mean, obviously, it's not like Priest with Kicking into Electric Eye. The songs almost go together to me, the way Detroit ends
I would
and
agree with
kicks
that.
into King of the Nighttime World.
I was going to ask, but I think my question has been answered, that the sound effects leading up to Detroit Rock City, the kid yelling in God of
Right.
Thunder. And
Yeah.
I was wondering,
Yep, started singing.
where did that come from? And then I realized Bob Ezrin,
His kids.
who had been working with Pink Floyd.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I'm
Exactly.
guessing that's where embellishing
weird
with that
mind.
theatrical kind of stuff
Yeah.
to the music, because they didn't do any of that before Destroyer, did they?
Not really. No, God, no.
No.
And then which is kind of why people were almost offended by it. But then,
Right.
like, I mean, the woman washing dishes and the keys jingling,
Yeah.
getting in the car.
That's
I mean,
cool.
it's incredible. And then, then kicking into King of the Nighttime, just an amazing record and a staple in it changed my life. This band did, and these albums, a lot of them are fatigued now, unfortunately, because they drove into my head for 15 years or 50 years.
50.
Yeah, 50.
I was going to say.
Right.
Well, I will attest to with the Boston, that album, I could not listen to it for the last 25 years.
Right.
And now I can finally, I played it all the way through and I might listen to it again.
Yeah,
so
it's great.
There's hope. There's
Right,
hope that
right,
we cleanse
right.
of that fatigue
You wait till it
and
pops
appreciate what that was for. It's funny, Donnie made the comment from Lebowski about the Eagles.
Right.
And at that point when Lebowski came out, it kind of hit me. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm tired of the fucking Eagles. And I didn't listen to them until the 2-3 part documentary came out on Netflix. And then you kind of go back and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this happened to that song. And I remember this. And you kind of and you warm up to it again because it's their music, but it's your life.
Absolutely.
So you kind of
Right.
get back to what those were. And so I believe that you can get over the fatigue of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Just takes half a lifetime. That's all.
Well, especially with Kiss for me. It's like, come on.
Right.
Like, change that fucking
Be a lot of
set
new
list.
material.
All right, boys. Well, that wraps it up. Nice.
All right. Now, one more thing. I just got to throw this out there since Donnie broke the rules with the live album.
Yes, he did. And the Flintstones.
Flintstones
I will never let Donnie let the Flintstones live down.
No, we'll never let him live it down, but I am going to one up and I'm going to go with a live album as a also mentioned. And that would be Jay Giles' band, Blow Your Face Out.
Yes, honorable.
Great album, honorable mention. Great album, but I'm mentioning it because that rap that Peter Wolf does leading up to Musta Got Lost. I don't even like to listen to the song Musta Got Lost if it's not the Blow Your Face Out with the wubba gubba with the green teeth saying, let me in. That is so iconic. That was
Around the hair of my
1976.
chin. Is that what you're saying?
Watching the Tonight Show signal in tomorrow, you know she ain't gonna call you. Hey, Reputa. Hey, Reputa.
Oh, is that what that?
Put your hair down.
Throw me down your hair and let me climb up the ladder you love. That is just an amazing moment in rock and roll. And I couldn't let it pass. So thanks for breaking the ice on the live
Got to
album.
do it.
And since you guys went illegal,
Okay,
I
here we
will
go.
just
Everybody.
discuss how it's really sad to see how the live album left us in like the mid to late 80s.
I've said it before. Every time I go and see, like most recently, I saw Grand Funk Railroad. And it always hits me like 3/4 of the way through the show that this is going to be over soon. There's not going to be anybody to go see play live.
Real.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The real music is going to be gone. I can feel it like dripping out of the life dripping out of it. So I try to take every chance I can to see somebody that I know is going to. Plus, I mean,
I'm going to have to get back into sports again. Awesome, boys. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening. We can't appreciate it more. And happy 2025. And welcome to season 2. So let's hope to have a great year here because we're certainly going to do our best. Donald, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Always
Kevin,
fun.
thank you.
thank you, AJ. Thank you,
Yes.
fans.
Brother Mark, thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much, AJ.
Yes. And we are out.
Watch me playing guitar, and you feel what my fingers others can do, and you wish you were the one I was doing it to. Well, listen, you've got great expectations. You've got great expectations. You're dying to be seen, and you wave and call my name.
You've been listening to Pastimes at 80s High. Our passion is the nostalgia from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. When times were more simple, times were more fun.
Hey, bud, let's party.
And we weren't stuck in our phones all day.
Inconceivable!
We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can send an email to pasttimesat80shigh@gmail.com and hit the website at pasttimesat80shigh.com. See you next time.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.